Hello everybody, welcome back to Band Trading Cards. And in this video, I will introduce to you the new card game that is coming out on Kickstarter. And this is Worldbreakers Advent of the Khanate. And I also interviewed the creator to answer our questions regarding the Kickstarter and the product itself. Okay, so I would like to introduce to you the creator, Elli Amir. How are you, Ellie?
I'm doing great. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me here.
Yeah, because we have a new. This is a new game, right?
Yeah, the Kickstarter is going to be on March 1st. So this is as new as they get.
That's good. Okay, because I have a couple of questions here that I want to ask you, and this will give value to my listeners, viewers, and they. Some people are wanting to support a game, but they want to know more about the background of the creator, the community, something like that. So I have a couple of questions. So I started playing cards with a trading. It's not like a trading card game, but it's like an airplane, like F-14, F-16, some all the airplanes last time, Concorde, and then it has like a stats in it. And when you play, you compare the stats, and then whoever is the biggest or the strongest airplane, that it will go to the discard pile. And for you, how did you start like playing this kinds of game, like a trading card game?
The cursor on my end was first Dungeons and Dragons, and that's when I was 6 year old. The red box was
Hmm.
translated to Hebrew. I'm from Israel, so the red box with the dragon on top. I
Hmm.
got it when I was 6, and I was hooked. I played the hell out of that one. And then around the time when I turned 11, Magic the Gathering was imported to Israel. I think it was revised edition.
Hmm.
So I tend to believe that, like many others of my age group, the first exposure to trading card games was Magic the Gathering. That was definitely not the last, though. Over the years, I collected and played Middle Earth, the Wizards, the Star Trek collectible card game, the Star Wars collectible card game, the Game of not Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time,
Hmm.
and the Age of Empires, Middle Earth, Babylon 5,
Wow.
Shadowrun, Vampire, and I'm probably missing some of the small ones. So over the years, I must have dabbled in at least 15 different card games.
Hmm. So do you attend tournaments as well?
Certainly, I was a regular tournament goer when I was playing Magic the Gathering,
Hmm.
and then Magic Online was released, and I loved it. I loved it way too much. At one point, I spent literally all of my money on Magic Online drafts,
Hmm.
and that's when I quit Magic.
So
um,
you realized you spent a lot.
yes, my then girlfriend, now wife, actually had to cover all of our bills for 2 months because I had no money.
Oh, Ben.
Yes, and then about 10 years ago, Fantasy Flight Game rebooted Netrunner. So Netrunner is a sister game to Magic the Gathering. It was designed by Richard Garfield. It
Oh,
was
nice.
released under the same umbrella of Deckmaster,
Hmm.
and they rebooted it in 2012, and I loved it. So I played in Netrunner tournaments. I organized Netrunner tournaments. I organized the New York City. I organized the Netrunner Originals several times, and I also traveled for tournaments. So in 2014, I won the Canadian National Championship for Netrunner, and
Wow.
over the years, I attended 3 different Worlds tournaments and a bunch of others. So I am definitely on the competitive side
Hmm.
of the spectrum.
So you're in the player side. How about collecting cards?
So I'm proud to say that I actually started selling some of my old Magic cards, and I think I sold about a dozen of them so far
Hmm.
for $2,000, which was nice.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
nothing huge, but
Yep.
a few dual lands and some older cards,
Yep.
which was nice. I also sold some Netrunner stuff, so I like collecting, but I also like selling cards because
Mm.
playing a game and making money off it is pretty nice. So I sold some Netrunner cards and I also collected. So for Netrunner, every event had alternate art cards that were
Mm-hmm.
issued for that event. And for a long time, I had all of them. So even
Wow.
those events that I didn't attend, I made sure to hunt down the cards that I was missing. I had a pretty cool Pokemon collection, which
Mm-hmm.
is probably totally out of date by now, because this was back in, oh my gosh, that's the early 2000s or so.
Uh-huh.
That's still organized in binders in my parents' house back in Israel. So I had a pretty nice collection of that. And for the Middle Earth card game, I have a playset of the first three expansions, the Wizards, Dragons, and the third one as well, and a near playset of the rest of the game. So there's there's of these like white boxes tucked around the house with
Mm.
different card games in them.
Good labels on it. Wow. I
Yes,
can relate to you that I started like collecting just one card and then I said, okay, I'm gonna buy the box. And then and now it's a lot.
yes,
Yeah, you will never know that you have so many that it covers all over your room.
yes.
Yeah.
So I I won't even guess how many different cards I have over the different games. Magic is still probably king with the most of them,
Mm-hmm.
but I probably have somewhere between 50 and 80,000 cards across the different games.
Wow.
Yeah. Many,
Okay.
many of them are here in the US. Some of them are still in my
Mm-hmm.
parents' house in Israel. It's also many different games, right? It's not just Magic the Gathering. So, um, Babylon 5, for example, I was a huge player of Babylon 5 card game, which was pretty cool because the game was designed for multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the box, it was designed for four players. It's based on an old science fiction television show that had four different races,
Yeah.
humans and three others. So in the B5 CCG, it's meant for four players, and every player plays a different race. And the game is symmetric, but the races have different strategies. So
Mm-hmm.
the Minbari are all about diplomacy, and
Yeah.
the Narn are all about like brute force. So that was a great game, and I have, I think, a dozen boxes just of that particular game.
Mm-hmm. So playing with these kinds of games, when did you start thinking about like, hey, I can make this my own, you know? What brought you to creating a game like Worldbreaker?
I've been dreaming of making a game since I was a kid.
Mm,
So if I dig through old computers,
yeah,
I'm going to find more and more spreadsheets. I'm a big spreadsheet person. More and more spreadsheets with prototypes and rules and cards lists and so on. So it's always been an idea at the back of my mind. And I mentioned I was a big fan of Netrunner. A
mm-hmm,
few years ago, Fantasy Flight Game lost the license for Netrunner. So I started working on my own reboot of the game with some
uh-huh,
ideas I had. But then a group of players actually formed a volunteer committee that is holding the game alive.
yeah,
So even though Netrunner is not supported by any company, this group of players kept the game going. They're releasing new cards. They're called Nisei, and they're doing a great job at it. So I didn't feel the need to reboot Netrunner anymore. They're doing it. They're doing a really good job.
mm-hmm,
So instead, I started thinking about, let's do something from scratch. Let's take the things I love about games, the things I love about Magic and Middle
mm-hmm.
Earth and Babylon 5 and Netrunner and so on, and design my own game out of them.
Oh, so you're pulling all the best that you can get from those games and then create your own inspirations, right?
Yes, a friend has accused me when I was playing the first few prototypes. I was playtesting with a friend,
Mm-hmm.
and he accused me of stealing the best mechanic out of every game out there.
Okay.
So it's funny because by now the Worldbreakers Discord has about 150 people,
Yep.
And every other day, someone comes up and say, "Oh, this is like Legend of the Five Rings," or
Mm.
"This is like Doomtown," or "This is
Yeah.
like Ashes Reborn." Like, yeah, I sort of stole from everyone.
Yeah, it makes sense. Don't reinvent the wheel, It's there. Just get the best of it. Yeah.
Right.
So how did you come up with the name World Breakers?
So thematically, the idea for the game came from an anti-hegemonic perspective. The idea was that I want to go to a place where there is no one central power that controls everything.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at our world for centuries, that was Europe, and it was the Western world in general that was pretty much in control, that dictated world affairs, that subjugated other people, that
Mm-hmm.
traded, and so on.
Yep.
And I wanted to go back to periods of history where that did not happen yet.
So it's like
Um,
decentralized, right?
that's a good
Like,
way to put it.
yeah, it's
Uh,
decentralized before.
that's a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking to a friend of mine who's an historian, we came up with the 13th century, where Asia and Eastern Europe, all the way to Italy, were connected for trade, for the transfer of people. And this is the period where we had Marco Polo and other famous explorers.
Mm-hmm.
And you would look at artifacts from that period, and you would see that they had artisans from Persia using gold from Asia and using fabrics from Italy to
Mm-hmm.
create some new pieces of art.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no central power controlling everyone. So that was the starting point for the theme. And then the question was, how can we make an alternate history out of it? How can we explain why the history of Worldbreakers did not go the same way that our history did? And this is where the idea of Mythium came to pass. And Mythium is a fantastical substance in the world of Worldbreakers,
Mm-hmm.
and people that use it, um, they find that their abilities are amplified. So the person behind you, if you move a bit to the right, her name is Kutulun,
Mm-hmm.
and she's the one
Yeah,
who's riding the horse right behind you. Yep, thank
right
you.
there.
And she's based on a historical figure. She's a bona fide Mongolian warrior princess. And in the world of Worldbreakers, she's using Mythium to amplify her leadership abilities and unite the Mongol people.
Okay.
And then we needed to find a name for these people that use Mythium. And after some bouncing around and thinking, we came up with Worldbreakers. One, it sounded cool and impactful.
Yep.
It sounded like they are really moving from our history to their own history. So that was one part of it. And another part, and this is going to be a bit cynical, but Google search, it looks like nobody has done it yet,
Mm-hmm.
while a bunch of other common combinations were. So it was in this nice intersection where it explains what is going on. Like the history as we know it has been altered by these people. And it's something that is open and we can put it out there as our own invention.
Okay. So that means you are putting the world history into like a bit of fantasy, right?
Yes.
And creating your own currency, which is Mythium, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm. So there will be, I assume that there will be lots of leaders. Like, what are those leaders aside from I've seen Kukutlun and then Marco Polo. I just seen two, and what are those other leaders?
Yeah, so in the game of Worldbreakers, you have your deck of 30 cards,
Mm-hmm.
and you have your Worldbreaker, which is similar to identities or characters in other games, where you start with the game with your Worldbreaker in play. And the Worldbreaker has a special ability. And not only that, the Worldbreaker influences your deck building in two ways. The first way, it provides you with a given resource that is unique to that Worldbreaker. And
Mm-hmm.
two, it gives you access to three specific cards called signature cards that only that Worldbreaker could have. So you pointed out that there's two of them. There's Cthulhu and Marco Polo, both of
Mm-hmm.
which are based on historical characters. The third one is called Ruknadin Kurshach. And for those of you who played Assassin's Creed, the video game, Kurshach was the leader of the Order of Assassins back in the day. And the fourth faction is called the Muhandasat, which is Persian for engineers, and in particular, women engineers. This is a fictional faction. It didn't exist. There's no historical parallels. It's a group of women who are building a utopian society in the mountains of Persia. So Worldbreaker is going to be released with these four Worldbreaker cards. And we already have plans for a bunch more. So as the game expands, there's going to be more and more of them. And when you build your deck, you're going to have that flexibility, and you can choose the one that fits your playstyle the best.
Mm-hmm. So, so that means the lore itself is the world history, right? And then you will add a little bit of fantasy on that lore. Do you have like a storyline on how they had a clash or the lore itself? Do you have it?
Yeah, certainly. And you pointed out that the starting point is our world history.
Okay.
And then we envision how things would change given the presence of Mithium. And the story follows Kutulun. She's the protagonist. And she's using Mithium to reunite all the Mongol hordes. So in our history, Genghis Khan passed away, and his empire, the Mongol Empire, was broken down into 4 different nations. Kutulun is walking in her great-grandparents' footsteps, and she's reuniting them again with the goal of finishing the Great Khan's conquests. So she wants to get this huge army, march over Europe, finish what Genghis Khan started. In parallel to that, there's other factions that are in play. Notably, there's Marco Polo. In our history, Marco Polo is a Venetian trader, and he's known for his exploration, for the book he wrote. But first and foremost, he was a merchant. He went to Asia in order to trade. And he wants to get back to Europe. He wants to warn Italy that the Mongol hordes are coming and that they should prepare. Along the way, he picked up some artifacts, which are not exactly his. Let's just say that certain people wouldn't trade for what he wanted, so he sort of took it. So on one hand, he wants to go back to Italy and warn them. On the other, he's not pure of heart, so to speak. He's still a merchant. He still wants to make money out of all of this. That's the starting point for the story. And the rest of it is told in 2 different ways. One of them, there is 16 spotlight cards in the game, and their flavor text, if you read it in order, tells you what's going on, what's the plot. And a second way to experience the story, Worldbreakers is going to come with a campaign mode. So in addition to playing this as a 2-player game, you could play it as a solo game. The solo game is going to have 10 chapters, and every chapter is going to progress the story. So there is going to be a story for the game, and those players that like theme, it's swimming in it.
So it's like I've played different digital games, which is like StarCraft, Warcraft. They have this campaign game where you go through a series of stories, and you learn how to play the game as well. So yeah,
exactly.
nice.
And Hearthstone has something similar.
Hearthstone.
Every once in a while, Hearthstone has an adventure mode where there's this story. In Hearthstone, the story is usually pretty goofy. In Worldbreakers is a bit more serious. It's a bit more hardcore alternate history. But yeah, it's the same idea where you go through the campaign, you learn the game, you learn the mechanics. There's this progression where you build your deck during the campaign. So as you play the campaign, you draft cards the same way you would versus a human opponent. And you learn more about the lore and the theme.
So now you have this existing Worldbreakers. Now you will be expanding in the next 5 years. And do you have like do you have in mind like expansion sets of this, like different countries or places that you will add leaders on it? So can you tell us more about the timeline of that?
Yeah, certainly. The game was actually designed with double the number of cards that we're going to release in the initial release.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to cut it in half just to make the Kickstarter campaign more manageable. But there's already an expansion that's been designed and is now under development. And on top of that, there's 2 additional expansions that have been designed and are waiting for playtesting. So that's already 2 years. We're planning on 2 expansions a year. That's already 2 years. There's a roadmap for 5 years that includes some ideas for mechanics, but also for the story. And the idea is that we're starting in Central Western Asia, and we're going to travel west until we get to the
Nice.
Levant, and then we're going to break south into Africa. So that's the idea for the story right now. We also have plans for organized play. The idea is to offer these seasons that will take 2 months each. And if your local gaming store would like to get involved, they'll be able to order a kit. And that kit is going to have some unique prizes, which are season exclusive. And you can play in the seasonal event, you can win these prizes. And also every season is going to have its own set of rules. So similarly to how some games might have a ban and restrictions list, we're going to take that a step further and really shake up the metagame every couple of months, present the players with new challenges. And then, of course, twice a year, there's going to be new cards that totally shuffle the way you play the game.
Okay. So you have you told me in the email that this is not a TCG and it's an LCG. Can you
Mm-hmm.
explain more about the LCG? It's my first time to actually know the word LCG.
Yeah, certainly. So as I mentioned before, I sort of wasted all of my money on Magic Online a few years ago, and I've been careful about collectible card games since. I still love them. Full disclosure, I played Hearthstone, I played Magic Arena, I dabbled in Flesh and Blood, so I've been playing many of these different games. For my game, I've chosen a different model, which is called a living card game. That's the name that Fantasy Flight has chosen, so I'm thinking of it more as a board game, card game, different ways to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that when you buy the game box, you get all of the cards that you need to play. So there's no booster packs, and there's no rares and mythics and so on. If your sole purpose is to play the game, if all you want is the game pieces, you can just buy the box, and you're going to have everything. And the game box is going to come with different pre-constructed decks, and you can play constructed, and you can even draft. So the box is going to come with rules for drafting Worldbreakers. Then, if you do want to collect, there's going to be other outlets for that. And one notable example are these seasonal events that I mentioned, where there's going to be time-limited cards that will be available through your friendly local gaming store.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to the store, you can participate in these events, and you're going to get these exclusive cards that are going to have the same gameplay functionality, but are going to have different arts, are going to have different treatments, and so on. So similarly to how Magic the Gathering has, I don't know, Counterspell. Counterspell is an iconic card. You can get it for 15 cents, but there's versions of Counterspell that sell for $50 or $100 or $200, depending on when it was printed and how it was handed out and how you can get it. That's going to be a similar model. If your focus is on the gameplay, you can get all the cards for cheap. If you want to collect, then there's going to be different outlets where you can get these exclusive cards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's like for the TCG is we have the theme deck, we have the booster boxes. So it's like this game is like a theme decks because it's ready to play, right? It's there and it's one set, like two decks that you can play instantly, right? And
Yes.
then you're taking away the booster boxes that is random pick of the cards. So you're taking it away and put it in a different packaging or whatever, like what you said, LGS promos, something like that, right?
Right. And a
Oh,
good example is the Kickstarter campaign itself. the Kickstarter campaign are going to have 4 exclusive oversized Worldbreaker cards.
Oh.
So the Worldbreaker cards are typically the same size as a play card,
Mm-hmm.
but the Kickstarter campaign is going to have an oversized version of each one of these Worldbreakers. And the only way you can get them is by pledging to the Kickstarter campaign. We have no plans to offer them once the campaign is gone. So these are
Okay.
going to be Kickstarter exclusive. And similarly, we have different plans throughout the game's life, what kind of exclusive cards we can offer that will be available to certain situations, certain events, and so on. And this is where the value can come from, because these are going to be limited and exclusive.
Okay. So aside from like being as an LCG, uh, what is the how is Worldbreaker different from other card games?
So a big difference is the game itself. And at this point, I've play tested Worldbreakers with dozens of players
Mm-hmm.
that come from Magic the Gathering, that come from Flesh and Blood, that even a handful of players that come from Pokemon. And they all sit down. I explain the rules in about 5 minutes, super simple rules. And I mentioned that I've been accused of stealing the best mechanic. And they all say, oh, I know how to play this.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start playing, and then they get crushed. And then they're saying, oh, actually, I have no idea how to play this.
Okay.
Um, Worldbreakers is designed around a very quick alternation of turns.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've played Legend of Runeterra, you might be familiar with the mechanic. Every player takes an action, which is very small, very basic, and then their opponent gets to respond, and you go back and forth. So unlike other games where the interactions come from instants like Magic, from the ability to interrupt your opponent's turn and say wait,
Mm-hmm.
in Worldbreakers you don't have that option. You cannot interrupt what they're doing. You have to wait for your turn, but your turn is going to be in 5 seconds. So it always goes back and forth, and that means that timing and sequencing are very important. You
Mm-hmm.
want to do something, you want to develop your board, but if you develop your board, you're not attacking your opponent's board. So it's a question of, should I focus on my opponent? Should I focus on myself? What is my opponent going to do? And so on. And this leads to a very dense gameplay. So the game is divided into rounds. Every round, you have 4 actions that you can take.
Mm-hmm.
Usually during a game, you're going to have around 25 or 30 actions, but most of these actions are going to matter. So gameplay is very tense, and it's critical that you read your opponent, that you know, that you guess well what they're going to do, and that you balance this need to be active and proactive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, in a while we're gonna show them the tabletop simulator, and we're gonna show them the parts of the board, the cards, and how to a little bit of gameplay on. You will show it to us. Okay, so I have another question, which is where do you plan to print the card? Because you're in USA, maybe other TCGs are printing it in somewhere in China, some in Canada, and some in US. Where do you plan to print it?
Right now, we're speaking to 2 manufacturers in China.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is called Longpack, and the second one is called Panda GM. And both of them are very established board game manufacturers. So this is the kind of project that they print on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. And did you start printing the samples already? Do you have the in your hands now?
So I did print prototypes.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this is the 4th batch of prototypes that just
Oh,
arrived in
there
the
you go.
mail today. The first 2 batches were for playtesting and for looking at the design, making sure the design is accessible and that players get how the cards look. And then the 3rd batch was for reviewers, and all of these were shipped.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the 4th batch of the prototype. that we've printed, and it's going to be shipped to more reviewers tomorrow.
Okay.
So yeah, we did play with the physical cards. Most of the playtesting was done online, just because it's much easier to iterate
Yes.
when you go online.
Correct.
But it was really important to do physical playtesting
Yes.
because of questions of accessibility. There are certain elements like moving tokens around that it's hard to know if they're going to translate well to the physical realm. So we've done a fair amount of real world playtesting as well.
Okay. So you're doing the playtesting now until the Kickstarter, right? Because what if you have a something, a card that you need to replace? Do you have are you planning for banned cards or reserve list, something like that, like MTG?
So first of all, we're going to keep playtesting until the very last second. So
Ah,
even during the campaign,
yeah.
we're going to keep playtesting. And up until the second the files are going to be shipped to the manufacturer, we're going to keep playtesting, which is awesome for you, the viewer. If you want
Mm-hmm.
to get involved, we have a Discord channel, and Worldbreakers is available on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator for free. And if you go over the change logs, you would see that many of the changes come from players. If you want to impact the game, if you want to influence the game's development, just come to the Discord, play some games, make your
Mm-hmm.
recommendations, and there's a fair chance they're going to end up in the file.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're going to playtest until the very last second. And I forgot your question.
Yeah,
Could you
are
repeat
you
the
going
question?
to like
Oh, ban and
if
restricted list.
ever if you print it already and then there's something, a card that is not that imbalances the game, are you going to go like as a reserve list or banned cards list, something like that?
So I mentioned that we're going to have these seasons where every 2 months we're going to release how is this competitive season going to look. And some of these changes might involve banning or restricting cards,
Mm-hmm.
but none of these changes are going to be permanent, because even if a card is banned in the current season, it's quite possible that in the next season you'll be able to play it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And there might be other changes to the seasons that will not influence card directly, but maybe a particular season you start with more resources. Maybe a particular season, some of the rules of the game change. For example, the
Mm-hmm.
way you draw cards is becoming easier or more difficult. So even if we won't target particular cards, I hope that by shifting the metagame around, shifting the environment in which the cards live, we're going to see an ebb and flow in the power level of particular cards.
Okay. That's good that you don't have like a Magic the Gathering, they have a reserve list that they said they will never reprint it again, right? So for you is if ever for a certain tournament that card is banned just for the certain tournament. Okay, that is good.
Yeah.
And
And oh, sorry for
go ahead.
interrupting you. It's really important for me that those players that just want to play the game
Mm-hmm.
can play the game. Um, in my mind, there's three stakeholders in collectible card games.
Mm-hmm.
There's the players, there's the collectors, and there's the speculators.
Uh,
And Worldbreakers is heavily biased towards the first two. So the players, if you just want to play the game, you can
mm-hmm.
buy all the game pieces for practically nothing. The box is going to be $30,
Wow.
and you have all the cards you need. And if you're a collector, you're going to have these different opportunities, like the Kickstarter campaign, to
Mm-hmm.
get these cards that will not be available elsewhere. The speculation piece is missing because there's no booster packs, and there is no making bets on whether a particular card is going to be worth less or more.
Yeah.
So the speculation piece is non-existent. If you're here for the speculation, Worldbreaker is probably not the game for you. If you're here for playing the game or collecting it, then these are the audiences we're targeting the most.
But we still don't know because Magic the Gathering did not start with those speculators, and it went to this collecting category that they start collecting the alpha. You know, we
Yeah,
still don't know what happens next, right?
yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
For example, I mentioned that some cards will be available for a limited time. We're going to print a certain amount of them. I hope we're going to print the right amount, but it is entirely possible we'll print too little, not on purpose, just by mistake. Even established companies like Wizards of the Coast um, underprint particular products.
Yeah.
So, you're right. There's always room for speculation.
Yeah, that leads to my second question, my
Yeah, go
next
ahead.
question, because you have now going to have a Kickstarter on March 1,
Mhm.
and then how do you package your product and the Kickstarter?
What do you mean?
Like what are the packaging? Like is it in a form of the one that you've said that it's a box that you can play everything,
Yes.
or you still have like another box which is for the accessories? So please tell us more about the packaging on the Kickstarter.
Sure. So the game is just going to come in a box, and that's going to have all the cards and all the components.
Mm-hmm.
The campaign is also going to have add-ons. So if you want to go beyond the game itself, we're going to have accessories, and we're going to have 2 playmats, which are going to be
There.
campaign exclusive. And we're going to have a deck box, which is going to be campaign exclusive. And we're going to have a card doubler. And the card doubler just gives you a second copy of particular cards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to play a 4-player draft, you can buy the box and the card doubler, and that's going to unlock a 4-player draft for you. So there are going to be different accessories that you can choose to get.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to speculate on these, by all means, go ahead. All of them are going to be campaign exclusive. So we have no plans to offer them outside of the campaign.
Nice. And are all cards have the letter K on it? Like the Kickstarter green letter K?
The cards themselves are not going to have that, but
Mm-hmm.
we are going to have additions. And
Ah,
so we're
nice.
not going to use the actual Kickstarter logo, but at the bottom of the card, where it has the copyright and the
Yep.
artist credits, it's going to say AOTK, which is Advent of the Khanate, the name of the first set, and it's going to say it's the Kickstarter edition.
Oh, okay. So not the logo, just the word Kickstarter.
Yeah. So it's going
Oh,
to be indicated that this is the Kickstarter version of the cards.
mm-hmm. And then I assume it will run for a month, right? March 1, and then when
Yes.
is the release time?
That's a great question. We're promising a 1-year delivery,
Okay.
and the game is fully designed. So the rules are done. The
Mm-hmm.
game is playtested. We're gonna keep playtesting it, but the playtest changes are tiny right now. Um, Everything is the art is done. So we have all of the illustrations. They've
Okay.
been already commissioned and delivered by the artists. So everything is done. If this was 2018, I would offer delivery in 4 months, because we just need to ship it off to the printer
Yeah.
and send it across the world.
Yep.
Sadly, this is not 2018. So I think that the prudent thing to do is to put a 1-year delivery promise on it. I truly hope that we can get it to backers earlier than that. The
Mm-hmm.
most optimistic projections we have right now are 6 months, but stuff happens, especially
Yes.
nowadays. There could be backlogs, there could be new strains of COVID, there can
Yep.
be a million and one things. So we took that buffer. So
Okay.
again, the official promise is 1-year delivery. I truly hope we can deliver it beforehand. And either way, the full game is available online. So you
Yeah.
can play it while you wait.
Okay, that's good. So if ever there's like an early, if they can make it earlier, so you can deliver it earlier, right?
Yeah. As soon as the campaign is done, as soon as Kickstarter transfers the funds to us, we're going to ship everything to the printer and start printing.
Yeah.
From that moment on, it's all up to powers that are outside of our control, like freights and shipping and ports, unloading
Mm-hmm.
ships, moving them to trains. The trains need to get to their shipping center, fulfillment centers, and so on. And on my end, I'm doing everything in my power to de-risk this as much as possible. So when you go to other campaigns, the campaign is done, and then the creators are saying, okay, we're going to start playtesting,
Mm.
or we now have the money, we're going to commission the art. We're not going to do all that because it's already done. The game is done, the art is done, the box is done, the design is done, everything is done. We just need to finish the campaign, print, and fulfill.
So this funding is mainly on the printing side, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The funding from the Kickstarter is meant to cover the physical printing of the game
Yeah.
and
Okay.
trading it and shipping it. But
All right.
yes,
I gotta put the link of the Kickstarter here if you have already at so that they can follow it. Okay. And
yeah,
then
certainly.
yeah. And then after the Kickstarter, what is the next expansion set? Can you tell us the name of the next expansion set? Yeah.
Yeah, so the next expansion is going to be called the Khanate Eternal. So this one is Advent of the Khanate. The next one is the Khanate Eternal
Eternal.
because the Khanate is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to keep following Cthulhu as she's reuniting the Mongol hordes and starting to move west towards Europe.
Mm.
There's going to be two other threads to the story that are going to tell you more about Mythium and about its effect on
Mm-hmm.
people that use it, which I hope is going to be quite interesting. The first expansion is also going to introduce a whole new guild. So Worldbreakers has 4 different guilds, which are similar to the colors in Magic the Gathering or
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
So the first expansion is going to introduce the 5th one, and it's also going to introduce a whole new set of Worldbreakers. So it's going to more than double the Worldbreakers that are available to players.
Okay.
So
Speaking of
there's
the
quite a few plans in the
sorry,
cards.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Speaking of the guilds, can you put a card from Marco Polo's guild to your to Coquetlin?
Yeah, certainly.
Oh, so you can
So,
mix. Oh, nice. Okay.
so the game has 2 different types of resources. One of them is called Mythium, and it's the game's currency. Every card has a particular Mythium cost.
Mm-hmm.
The second resource is called standing, and that signifies the clout that you have with the different guilds. And standing, it's a bit like a leveling mechanism. When
Mm-hmm.
you gain standing with a particular guild, it unlocks all the cards of that guild, but you don't spend the standing to play the card. So one way
Okay.
to think about it is that, let's say you're playing Magic the Gathering and you play a mountain. Now you can play any red card you want without wasting that mountain. So it's similar in Worldbreakers in that regard. And even though Cthulhu starts with the Earth Guild and with Earth Standing, over the game, she can gain standing with other guilds. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want your deck to have 2 or 3 different guilds, you can definitely do that. Then it's up to you as the deck builder to start playing and optimizing and finding the right mix of cards and the right mix of resources. So
Okay.
the resource system is definitely there for you to experiment with. It's not as rigid as some other games like Pokemon. You can play any card you want. It's just about shuffling your standing in a way that gives you the resources you need.
Mm-hmm. So it's like the standing is unlocking for the cards that have those requirement, so you can play it, right?
Exactly.
But you don't have to pay for that card, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay.
You still pay the Mythium.
Yes.
The Mythium is like a joker resource. But once you unlock the card with the standing requirement, you do not spend the
So
standing.
it's
You
like a
keep it.
level up of your whole clan or of your whole
Yes.
guild. Oh, I got it now.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
And in
So, mm-hmm,
playtesting, I would say so when the game ships, you're going to have it by default, you're going to have 4 pre-constructed decks.
mm-hmm,
And each of these precons is going to be just one guild. And when we playtest draft, and when we playtest Constructed, it's quite clear that going with just one guild is probably not going to cut it. You want to have at least 2 guilds in your deck, and you want to see how you mix the cards from these guilds.
Yeah.
Are they equal in count, or do you have a primary guild or a secondary guild? And maybe you want a couple of cards from a third guild that it's going to be a bit more difficult for you to play them because you're going to spend your standing on other stuff. But yeah, there's some interesting decisions to be made, even as early as deck construction. And then when you play the game, there's a lot of questions around resource management that you need to address.
Okay. So, um, so with regards to another, after the Kickstarter, I am just looking at the timeline here because after the Kickstarter, you have the next expansion set, which is the Eternal, and then do you plan to have like a tournament for TTS?
That is a great question. I didn't actually think about that,
Yeah, to
but
keep
that's
a community going, while waiting for your release.
a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look into the details, and I think that we're gonna execute on that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the cool things is we can start offering rewards,
Yeah.
um, even for any virtual tournament that we do, and that's part of the plan. And looking at, I mentioned Netrunner, I mentioned Nisei, this player-run organization, and they've been running their world championship online. So when the game was still in print by the mother company, by Fantasy
Yeah.
Flight, the world championship was in the US. And you would go there and you would have players from Europe, you would have players from the UK, you would have players from Australia, but they would be the minority. Most of the
Mm.
players were Americans, not even that many Canadians. And one of the cool things about running a virtual tournament is that suddenly you have representation from these places that typically don't send their players to the
Yeah.
US. It's just
Correct.
expensive and time consuming. And we can offer rewards for these tournaments as well. So if we have a tournament specific card that we
Mm-hmm.
offer as a reward, shipping 2 or 3 cards to Australia is not a big deal.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
if the person who wins the tournament is from New Zealand or from Africa, from South Africa, let's say, we can send them their rewards. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow up on that.
Yeah.
And when the campaign is done, I think we're going to have some virtual events to celebrate the completion of the campaign. Thank you for that.
Yes. Yeah, and you have the price right there in your box right beside you. The
Oh,
price.
you think so?
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, collectors are, they like sample cards right now. In
Mm-hmm.
trading card games, man, if you have the first ever cards, that is the coolest that you can get. So
Yeah, I've
the
actually been keeping these things for
yeah,
myself, but if one of these days players want them, I'm just gonna sell them and give the money to charity or
yeah,
something, because that would be
make
awesome.
make it like the price of the tournament. Yeah, that will be
That's a great
cool.
idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's go to the organization. So your organization structure right now is you, and do you have any other under your umbrella?
Yeah. So I'm the only person working on Worldbreakers full time.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been full time on the game for almost a year now. This is all I've been doing, but there's a huge team involved. There's 14 different artists that have been drawing the illustrations, and 3 of them, Agustin Castro in oh my gosh, in Argentina,
Mm-hmm.
Emilio Rodriguez in Spain, and Chinzu Chinzu in Mongolia. They've drawn about 3/4 of the art, and the rest of the art comes from 11 other artists, which are all over the world. We have a graphics designer who is US based. He's a game developer himself, and he's been working on the card designs, the box
Mm-hmm.
design, and so on. We have Jenny Perconti, who is our rules manager. They're based in Boston, and they've been the rules manager for Netrunner for quite a while now. So Jamie is brilliant when it comes to building rules and making them accessible. And we also have a big team of cultural advisors. So we had three different advisors for the Mongolian culture.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Bella Baira, who is a former Miss World Mongolia and a cultural representative from Mongolia for several years now.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, his name is Batbileg. He's a professor of costume design in State University of Ulaanbaatar. So he's a Mongolian artist who's been
Mm-hmm.
reproducing traditional means for creating costumes. And he's been involved with the graphics design of the Mongol people. Um, we had an advisor on the representation of Indian people. There is a particular martial arts called Kalari Payet,
Mm-hmm.
which is in Worldbreakers, and we had an advisor for that. We had an advisor for representation of trans people. We had an advisor for representation of people with disabilities. So many different people that contributed to these aspects of the game and making sure that we're as accurate and as constructive as possible when portraying these people.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a bunch of playtesters, a whole bunch of playtesters that were involved. And I must be forgetting someone. Oh, we had Mike, who's been an animator. So the cinematic trailer is gonna
Mm-hmm.
come out in 2 weeks,
Wow, nice.
and Mike has been taking all the different card illustrations and building them into a cinematic trailer that we're gonna reveal in mid-February. So
Okay.
yeah, there's been quite a team involved with the different aspects of bringing this game to life.
Okay, nice. So please give me a copy also for the video so I can show the cinematic
Oh yeah,
cinematic cards. Yeah, so I would love that. Um, and then so that means I can see that this game is scalable up to different centuries. Like now it's 13th century, and I've played a lot of Civilization. Do you know Civilization? Yeah, it's a digital game where each there's like stages of civilization until you go to the advanced technology. So I think do you plan on like advancing to different centuries?
that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a plan for the initial storyline, and that's already several years of expansions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that over the game's life, a big part is going to be gathering feedback from players. And I'm really curious on where the players will want the story to go.
Uh,
Because ostensibly, we have several options. One of them is we can keep the same storyline and we can just keep going. Let's say every expansion is going to be 10, 20, 30 years
yeah.
of story time. And that's how we're going to develop. Um, we could have time jumps. Let's say we have a story for 50 game years, and
Mm-hmm.
then we jump 100 years into the future. And now it's
Yeah.
the Renaissance, but the Renaissance had 150 years of Worldbreaker history. And a third option is just to go somewhere else. Let's say
Correct.
that we tell the story of the Mongol people in Kutulun and what they're going to do. And now let's say there's a clean slate
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to start the alternate history from 18th century Africa, or
Yeah.
we're going to start the alternate history from, let's say, I don't know, 200 BC Rome. So I think the story can, once we go past that initial timeline,
Yeah.
can jump in different ways. And I want the players to have an impact there. So we're going to see what the players think. We're going to see where the fan faction goes. And based on that, we're going to make the decision.
Yeah. That's good. So we're gonna take feedbacks from the players. Okay. So with regards to the distribution of your products, so we have the common one is distributors goes to LGS and the retailers. So will you be in this kind of model?
Yeah, right now the emphasis is on the Kickstarter campaign,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to be direct to consumer.
Yep.
And once the campaign is done and the game is printed, then we're going to do our best to stay direct to consumer as possible. But in my mind, the way to secure the longevity of the game is through the community.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that there's a limit to how far the online community of a physical game can go. Even with online play and all that, at the end of the game, it's a box. It exists outside of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And to build community, you have to work with local game stores. That's where people hear their news, that's where players congregate, and that's the channel through which we plan to distribute these seasonal prizes that
Mm-hmm.
are going to become, ideally are going to become these like crown jewels for collectors and players alike. So I'm in early discussions with distributors, both in the US and Europe,
Mm-hmm.
to see how we can get the game box out there into game stores. To be candid, it's less of a priority because the focus right now is really on the Kickstarter
Yeah.
and getting the funding for that initial print run.
Yeah.
But I do plan Worldbreakers and the expansions to be available through game stores, and hopefully I'm going to have more concrete idea of how that's going to look in a few months.
Okay. Sounds good. Um, Speaking of, you said LGS you get news from the LGS when you go there, you know. Now in this century we have content creators.
Mhm.
So content creators are helping sharing all the information to the subscribers, to everyone online. So would it be possible for a content creator to become a retailer of your product?
That's a really interesting idea, and I think it's worth exploring. I didn't think about it until now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are referral programs, right? Where, let's say you're selling a particular product through Amazon, you
Yes,
could provide a content creator with a code, and anyone who buys the product using their code is gonna give them some percent of the sale.
correct.
I like the idea of making content creators distributors themselves in a way. I think that's really cool. In general, one of the big things I've been doing with Worldbreakers is to approach as many content creators as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, no content creator is too small or too big. If you're spending some of your time to put a
Yes,
video out there, then I think that's magnificent. And I've been on Twitch streams for creators that have 20, 30 subscribers.
mm-hmm.
And I don't care. This person sits there, 2, 3 times a week, putting themselves out there in front of 20, 30 subscribers. It's a lot of effort, and it's a lot of like time and money that, they could have watched Netflix instead. And yet they do it. So I've been trying to reach every possible content creator out there. And many of them are busy, many of them are not interested, or they have other stuff on their plate, and that's fantastic. I'm glad that they're busy. But many others are excited. I mean, you're a good
Mm-hmm.
example. This is a new product. I think we have a shared interest that the market is going to be as heterogeneous as possible, and that players have a choice on how they want to spend their time, how they want to spend their money.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
For content creators, yeah, you said no small content creators, but we don't know that this small creator will have a viral video, will go big someday. You don't know, right? And as long as the content creator is giving his like con how you call it, um periodic um release of his contents, and he's really serious on getting the word out there, and that's fine, right? Because some content creators are they make their own a little bit of content, and then they call them themselves YouTubers, and then they stop. So so the good thing to see here is that you focus on a content creator that is really serious on his craft and consistent on his video creating. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's what I see this. And then if you know drop shipping, you know drop shipping, right?
I don't. What
Okay,
is dropshipping?
drop shipping is there's a manufacturer or a supplier then I'm the one doing the marketing. And
Uh-huh.
if I will create a page, whatever I want to do is, and then get some customers, then if they order from me, it will go directly order to you, and you will be shipping to direct to the customer.
Got it.
So
I
that's
know
the
it is
drop.
white labeling, but yes.
Yeah, they call it as well as drop shipping. And the
Hmm.
label there is from the
From you, yeah.
from me, not from the manufacturer. So that's how they do it nowadays. It's been
That's a great
here
idea.
for since 2010. Yeah,
I'm gonna look into that. That's really interesting.
yeah, just an idea for you. Yeah, and
Another thing I wanted to mention. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
About content creators. You've been releasing, I think, a video a day, or
Yes,
I mean, between the
or
stream and the
more.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. And about a month ago, I decided to do an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I totally randomly, I remember this old video game from the 90s called Sky Roads. And it's a really basic, you drive a car and you need to jump and escape from like different environmental hazards. Pretty straightforward game. And I decided that every day I'm going to play one level of Sky Roads and put the video on YouTube and Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And to put things in perspective, a level of Sky Roads takes between 30 and 60 seconds. Okay. And then editing the video and adding a splash screen and creating a tweet, that's another, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes. So the whole thing is 5 minutes a day. I got it for 18 days and I just couldn't continue. I couldn't find the 5 minutes to do
Mm-hmm.
it. Um, and I think viewers and companies underestimate the amount of effort required to be consistent as a content creator.
Yes.
Because I couldn't find 5 minutes after 18 days. And people like you are putting out like 15, 20, 30-minute videos every day.
Yes.
And I find that I think it's amazing. I mean, that's part of my reasoning for reaching out to literally every content creator I can.
Mm-hmm.
At one point I just went to YouTube, I typed card games into the search box, and I reached out to every person that had that kind of consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if they release 3, 4 videos a week, then I don't care how many viewers they have. I don't care how many subscribers they have. In my mind, these are professionals who are putting themselves out there, and they're awesome, and they deserve my attention.
Yes. But being a content creator, you're gonna be a producer, a director,
Yeah,
an editor. So
an editor.
everything, everything is you
Yes.
needed some skills to do that. I've for me, I've been in the social media for since 2009. I've been blogging. Last time I was blogging every day. So that's my thing. Like I focus on one thing. If I want to improve myself, because my English is not good in writing last time, so now it's getting better because of the everyday blogging. Then after that, I did a podcast every day, which is I did a podcast for a year. I think until now I have a podcast, but it's not every day anymore because podcasting is for my speaking to improve the way I speak like English, because I can't barely speak a sentence with a like this whole straight. And then I decided to show myself and speak in front of the camera, and then I did it every day. And for content creators, not just making a video or whatever, you have to make a video that you are passionate about, because you cannot sustain it. It's easy to burn out. But for me, I love cards. I really love cards since high school. So I was in love with Magic the Gathering, but I don't have money to buy it. I don't even have a money to buy my food. My sister gives me like a pack lunch for lunch, and then that's it. So that is my way of uh, giving back to myself. So that's why I love cards. I collect them when I have money to buy. Then it's my passion. That's why I can do it every day, because sharing it to other people, if you have what's your favorite, something, an item that you want to show to your mom, your dad, your friends. What do you think?
Um, this pen is a good example. I got it a few
See,
months ago. I've been wearing it ever since. So,
okay, if I will ask you create a content about your pin, would you love to do after this interview?
oh yeah, certainly. I
See,
can tell you
and
where I
can you,
found it. I can tell
yeah,
about the artist. They have different like other types of pens that I want to buy. Yeah, I can talk about it for a couple of hours probably.
yeah, that's the same thing as me, sharing cards when I ever there's a mail coming. I have to show it. It's, feel happy.
Hmm.
So for the content creators, some other um, manufacturers or product designers, creators, they underestimate the creators because they don't know how difficult it is to create. For me, every day, I'm doing it every day, so I spend 4 hours. So production, actually the whole day, because in the morning I have to think and go to Discord, getting some information from the Discord community, and after that I will think about what's the content that I will be making, and then starting setting up my things, and then after that I will have recording, and then after that editing. So it's around 4 hours a day, but I love it. So that's why I would like to ask you, content creator, not the card creators, if you are willing to make us a retailer for the product, so that of course we love our passion, but we need to sustain it, right? We need to buy devices. We need money to to sustain our creations. So that's why I was asking you if you can consider that. If yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And
Hmm.
the fulfillment center doesn't care. I mean, the fulfillment center, they print a sticker, they put it in the box, and they ship
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
The sticker can be whatever, right? It's all computerized.
Yes.
So I know the process is white labeling. I didn't think about white labeling with content creators. That's a really, let me look into the logistics of that. I really like it as an idea.
And one more
Um,
thing, you can also add, like for me, if you like band trading cards, like a promo card with a band trading cards logo there, just a very small one, or
mhm.
just the text box with a watermark with my logo, and this will be only exclusive for those who bought from this content creator. That will be really cool, right?
Let me write that down.
Yeah. So that's just my suggestions, because um uh co- content the crowd creators right now are focusing on the local gaming stores, which are which is good because community is going there. But a content creator has his own community, and we can make our own Discord channel, server, and we can gather people there, and we can offer
Oh,
other
yeah.
products as well.
And I don't think that, I think that these different, oh, sorry. I think that these different channels, I think many of them are separate from each other. I think that those people that go to the local gaming store and buy their games there might not be the same people that listen to your channel or
Yeah.
any other channel for that matter. I think that it's different audiences and they have different personalities and they want different things. So it's not like I'm threatening the local gaming store by selling through other channels. I think the Kickstarter itself is a great example of that. Most of the people that buy the store don't buy Kickstarter products. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, when I started doing research about Kickstarter, one of the things that came out is that there is a particular type of people that buy and pledge to Kickstarter campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to look into that. That's a really interesting idea, and I would love to pursue that.
Yeah. Okay. Because content creators are just new in this century. We've been in the LGS since I was young. I wasn't born yet.
Mhm.
LGS is there already, but we know we are going to advance technology, and communities are easily you can easily gather a community like Discord. Discord is just probably 3 years old or something, right? So we have to adapt to that, and we are not a threat on what I believe is that we are not a threat on the LGS, because LGS has its own community. There are people who love to go there just to drink their home brewed coffee, something like that, and to see their friends or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I agree with you.
for the creators, they also want to see the creator because of his personality, like the way for me, maybe some followers, they like how the way I speak, the way I smile, something like that, right? Yeah, like TikTok, you just swipe and then you stop at a certain creator that is charming, and you like how he's simple, something like that, right? And oh, even though they're using the same music on the TikTok, but there's one creator that you like, right? So it's similar. We are not a threat of any other stores here. We are not a threat of Walmart. We are not a threat of LGS. We have our own community. So that's what I want some creators to consider.
That's a
Yeah,
great idea. I'll think about it, and I'll
yeah,
see what's the logistics behind it.
yeah. Okay. So now you have, speaking of the community, you have Discord, which is 134 members, so that I've seen right now. And aside from Discord, what are other communities you have?
So before I forget, I'll remind the viewers that the campaign is coming on March 1st. And if you want to be reminded on the campaign launch,
Mm-hmm.
and if you want to keep getting updates, so I keep sending new art, I keep sending news about the game, you can subscribe to the mailing list. So I'll give you the links for the mailing
Okay.
list and for the Kickstarter campaign. The biggest community we have right now is on Discord.
Mm-hmm.
It's working very well for us. Lots of players looking for games, talking about the game, balancing discussions, a lot of balancing discussions. Um, there's also a smaller Twitter community. So if you're on Twitter, you can join us there. But really, the Discord is where it's at, especially if you want to get involved with the game, if you want to influence the design.
Mm-hmm.
We still have this window of 2 months before the campaign ends. And again, we're still playtesting. So if you want to make an impact, just join the Discord and come play some games.
Mm-hmm. How about Instagram, TikTok, Facebook groups? Do you have those?
We don't have those. We
Okay.
focused on mostly on Discord. That
And
seems to
Twitter.
be and Twitter. Discord seems to be the community of the day, at least in gaming circles.
All right. So, um, maybe we can take another video so that you can show us a little bit, a very short description on the cards and how to play it. Okay? So, we're gonna change our view right now.
Yeah. So welcome to Worldbreakers. And this is the same module you can play on Tabletop Simulator right now. There's also a module on Tabletopia, which is entirely free, no installation needed. It's all web-based. And what we're seeing here are, first of all, the Worldbreaker cards I mentioned. So for example, this is the Cthulhu Worldbreaker card, and she belongs to the Earth Guild. So when you start the game, you're going to get an Earth standing, and she gives you a special ability. Whenever you attack, one of your followers gains a strength bonus. And the purpose of the game is to be the first to reach 10 power. So we have these power tokens, and the first player to get 10 of them wins the game. There's two ways to gain power. The first one is by playing location cards. And these cards are in your deck. You're going to draw them, you're going to play them, and they have these different stages. So Solomon's Throne has 3 stages, 1, 2, and 3. During the game, you can trigger them to gain their ability. In this case, you're going to gain 2 power, 2 power, and 1 power. The second way to gain power is by playing followers. So your deck is going to have different followers in it. I'm just going to play 2 of them as an example. And over the game, you're going to play these followers, and you can use them to attack your opponent. Every follower that goes through is going to net you 1 power. So in a way, there's 2 different paths to victory. You can either build locations and develop them, or you can play followers and attack your opponent. I mentioned before that there's two types of resources. The first one is called Mythium, and is these crystals that you can see over here. You start the game with 5 Mythium, and this is the game's currency. So every card is going to have a Mythium cost in the top left. For example, the Lowly Bard costs 2 Mythium. Then there's standing, which is represented by the board over here. There's 4 different guilds, and you're going to start with 1 standing in one of these guilds. So Cthulhu starts with an Earth standing. Marco Polo starts with a Stars standing. And cards are going to have a standing requirement in the top left. So for example, Calleri Adept requires 1 Earth standing. That's the icon in the top left. While the Compassionate Ascetic, she requires 2 Earth standing. Again, the same icons in the top left. And the 10,000 Ride, they require 3 standing. So these are the resources. And let's talk about gameplay. So the game is organized into rounds. And every round, you can take 4 actions. But you're going to alternate. So in this example, Marco Polo takes an action. Then it's your turn. You take an action. Then it's Marco Polo again until we take 4 actions. During an action, during a turn, you can take 1 action, and you can see the different actions you can take on this card over here, this reminder cards. So for example, you can gain 1 Mythium. You can draw a card, you can gain a standing, and you can play cards from your hand. And all of these, they're going to take all of your turn. So if you choose to take 1 Mythium, that's it, you're done. Marco Polo can do his thing now. There's 3 different types of cards in your deck. And one type of card are events. These are one-time effects. You play them, you resolve them, you're done. So a gratuitous gift, for example, allows you to play a follower card with a discount. The second type of cards are followers. So here is an example. The Earth Guild Executor is one follower. He costs 2 Mythium to play, and he has 2 strength and 2 health. These are the icons at the bottom of the card. They come into play during combat. The third type of card are the locations I mentioned before. And when you play them, you put them on your board and you load them up with stage counters, 1 for each one of the stages. So the Humble Underpass has 2 different stages, and you load it up with 2 counters when you play it. After you play a location, it doesn't do anything. It just sits there until you take the develop action. And when you do, you remove the top counter and you resolve the ability. So the Humble Underpass, the top ability is you gain 2 Mythium and you gain 1 power. And then you're done. Your opponent can do whatever they want. When it's back to your turn, you can develop the location again and gain the next ability. And the last type of action is to attack your opponent. The way attacking works, and let me put some followers up here to make the story a bit more interesting. So let's say that we have these followers and that Marco Polo has these 2 followers. So the way attacking works, first of all, let's say it's my turn and I want to attack. I'm going to take my attacking followers, I'm going to exhaust them and move them forward. Now, the defending player can choose how they want to block, and they do it 1 at a time. So for example, let's say the Moth Keeper wants to block the Emboldened Soldier. Marco Polo is going to exhaust her and put her in front of the soldier. Now, these 2 followers are going to deal wounds to each other equal to their strength. So the soldier is going to deal 1 wound to the Moth Keeper, and the Moth Keeper is going to deal 1 wound to the soldier. And now these 2 followers move back. They're done. They're not part of combat anymore. So remember, you block 1 at a time, you block an attacker once, and that attacker is done. It's not in combat anymore. You can't block it again. Here's another example. Let's say the Caravan Guard wants to block the Earth Guild Executor. So they're going to deal 2 wounds to each other. And now, if a follower has at least as many wounds as health, they're defeated. They go to the discard pile. So the Earth Guild Executor has 2 wounds, which means that I'm going to send them to the discard pile. The Caravan Guard are still around and they move back. Now, the defender can keep blocking as long as they want, as long as they have followers to block with. If there are any attacking followers left, then combat is successful. And in that case, the attacker is going to gain 1 power for every follower that got through. So in this case, I gain 1 power. If 2 followers got through, I'm going to gain 2 power. On top of that, if combat is successful, I get to damage one of my opponent's locations. So let's say that Marco Polo is the one to have a location in play. And I'm going to load it up. If combat is successful, I can damage this location and remove the top stage counter. So Polo is effectively losing this top ability. They cannot use this card to gain 2 Mythium and 1 power. That is gone. And that is how combat is resolved. So we're going to keep taking our turns one at a time. When we're done, there's going to be a rally phase. And during the rally phase, a few things happen. First of all, we check for victory. So at this stage, if a player has at least 10 power and more power than the other player, they win the game. If there's a tie, the game is not over. We're going to keep playing. And notice that victory is only checked in this step. So if Marco Polo reaches 10 power here, or if Cthulhu reaches 10 power here, the game is not over. The other player could still catch up. After checking for victory, we're going to ready our followers. We're going to gain 2 Mythium. And we're going to draw a card. So similarly to how we have an untap phase in Magic the Gathering and other games, here we're going to have the rally phase where we're going to ready our followers and we're going to get some free stuff, free Mythium and a card. And finally, last but not least, we're going to flip the round tracker. So the player that was first before is now second, and the player that was second is now first. So the turn order has been flipped, and we're going to keep going. And that's the game, pretty much. You're going to have your 4 turns. You're going to take one of these actions every time. You're going to play followers and locations and attack your opponent. And the first player to get 10 power wins the game.
Okay, so I have a question about the standing. You said there's like a Earth standing, star, what's that, moon, and wind, right?
Void.
And void. Sorry. And then you can see the followers have their own standing on its left side. You can see on the board there's one follower there that has like the Earth sign. That one. So can you use that for Marco Polo, because Marco Polo is a star?
Right. So one of the actions you can take is to pay 2 Mythium and gain a standing. And that standing can be of any guild. So if it's Marco Polo's turn, he can choose to spend 2 Mythium and gain an Earth standing. And now, if Polo has the Eagle Huntress in his hand, on his next turn, he can pay 2 Mythium and play the Eagle Huntress, because now he has the standing which is required. So there's no limit to how many colors you can have in your deck. If you want, you can keep paying 2 Mythium and unlock standing with each and every one of the other guilds. It's all up to you. So you are encouraged to play a particular guild because your role breaker gives you a standing with that guild, but branching into other colors is pretty straightforward. All you need is 1 standing with that guild, and you can play all of their 1 standing cards. So if all you want, for example, is to play the Eagle Huntress in the Polo deck, 1 Earth standing is all you need, and you can play that card.
Okay, how much was that, the cost of a standing for Marco Polo?
So using the action
Mm-hmm.
is going to cost you 2 Mythium.
Uh-huh.
And there's also different cards
There you
that
go.
are going to give you standing. So for example, using the Humble Underpass as an example, the second stage gains you 2 Mythium and
Nice.
1 standing with any guild. So as you build your deck, if you do want to branch out and
Uh,
use more than one guild, you're probably going to include more of these cards that allow you to splash cards from other guilds more easily.
Okay. That is cool. So you can do whatever you can get from other guilds. Wow. I love that.
Right.
Okay. So I guess they can also go to your YouTube channel that you have some gameplays there, and you can send me the links. I can put in on my description on this video
Yep.
so they can watch that. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're good now. Everything is explained, and yeah. Then please for before we end the video, please invite them to the Kickstarter and other products that you have or channels that you have.
Right. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me and for taking the time to prepare. And I'm sure that editing this is going to take a while. So I greatly appreciate it. As I mentioned, the Kickstarter campaign is starting on March 1st.
Hmm.
And the best way to join is to go to our webpage and join the mailing list. That way you're going to get all the news, and I will let you know when the Kickstarter goes live. If you want to try the game, don't buy it before you try it. The game
Hmm.
is free, it's online, it's on Tabletop Simulator, it's on Tabletopia. You can join the Discord channel to find opponents. We have regular demos and playtests that we run. So I want you to make an informed decision before you give me your money. Try all these things, do your homework, and then decide if you want to buy or not. And that's going to be on our website, and you're going to find the links in the video description.
All right. Thank you so much, Ellie, for your time as well. And thank you for considering Ben Trading Cards as showing your game.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So I gotta put all the links, guys, down on the description, and you can click on whatever you want. And yeah, Ellie said, play the game first before you back. Okay. Then don't forget to support the World Breakers on Kickstarter and join the Discord community. Then yeah, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.
And don't forget to
Bye.
subscribe to this channel.
Subscribe, like, and comment.
Yes, all that
Thank
stuff.
you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ellie.